It is now time to elevate.
Time to motivate him.
Let's engage. It is now time to elevate.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for staying tuned in for another episode of Engage, Motivate, and Elevate with your host, Monet Fox. Up next, we have a young yoga school instructor, Mike Massey. He's going to be joining us for our show. He owns a yoga studio called 33 Degree Yoga. Mike has been born and raised in Boston. He played football for a really long time and has a really great story to share with us. So I hope that you love it as much as I do. Stay tuned in for Mike Massey, everybody. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm so happy that you could make it, man. And you did me a solid too, because you helped me out in the last minute in the ninth inning. So
hey man, this is what I do, man. Like I enjoy being in. Like I told somebody the other day, say, what do you love the most about being you, being Yoga Mike, as they affectionately call me around? I said, the yoga reminds me a lot about when I used to play football. Like the beauty of football to me was never the touchdown or the long bomb, or it was just like the ability to be in the midst of all that chaos when people are screaming and crying and swearing and pads are smashing together, and you're able to find that Zen moment that, okay, I know exactly what's going on. I'm not afraid, and I can go make something happen right now. Yeah. So you calling me and saying, I need you, it's like, I can go make something happen right now, and this is what I live for.
Yeah, I love that you started explaining that way, because I wanted to actually talk about, I mean, most people do know you from when you were younger, your football days, you playing football and things like that. So how did you, now you have a yoga training studio where you're training yogis. Where did that transition come from, or what made you kind of make that actual switch?
This is going to be so cliche, but like, you remember the movie The Last Dragon, right?
Of course.
Like Bruce Leroy just wanted to find that thing, that master, that glow, right? And it's funny how football, like I said, I was already doing yoga as a football player, learning that I had a purpose in all that chaos. But football protected me, like protected a lot of guys in my age group. That was Father's Day, and I'm getting texts from guys who played football with me or against me, or, from college all the way down to Pop Warner. And a lot of these guys came from here, and they grew up in these same streets, and they're now awesome dads, and some are even granddads. And I gotta say that being athletes during like the late 80s into the 90s and maybe early 2000s saved our lives. It taught us how to stay in our lanes. Like, I tell stories all the time about being run up on. Like, I used to date a girl in OP back in the day. And y'all remember when the New York boys were trying to take over OP? Like, this is not no story made up. We know this. If you're from Boston, you know this, right? And I remember you had to get out of the projects at a certain time to catch a cab, or the cabs wouldn't come into the projects after a certain time. So you had to go to Dudley to catch it. It's before Uber and Lyft, so all the young people tuning in, we had to actually catch cabs. And I remember I stayed too long. I passed out literally because I was up in the third floor of the project. He got me and I took a nap, and I kept saying, no, give me 5 more minutes. Now it's late and I had to creep out, run into some people that was in the mix. They wasn't from the area. They was from the other team. They thought I was somebody else. Guns come out. And thank God, like, somebody just recognized me, like, yo, leave that kid alone. He's one of the football players. Like, and then one of the guys who was actually with them was like, oh yeah, like, I saw you play football before. I was like, and that's when I realized it was different for us. And I think if you're from Boston, you'll remember Jamal Jackson. Rest in peace to that brother, Jamal Jackson. He's Boston High School. I will always remember Jamal Jackson because we have a lot of friends together. We were friends as well through sports and through the hood. And I think when he got murdered downtown after the hair show back in the day, I think that's what lit the light that told a lot of the people around here that was living in that lane, that lifestyle of murder, kill, drugs, etc., that these players and these football people and these baseball people and people that want to try to do something else with their lives, don't cross that path. We got to make sure they don't cross that path.
Athletes were always kind of separated in Boston.
Yeah. And now, again, don't get it wrong. We wasn't angels. It was times we kind of mixed and crossed paths. But again, we knew enough, or the people that saw us going that way will say, yo, this ain't you. You need to get back on this track. I mean, this is always, I remember having a talk with a brother right on Stanwood Street. My man, Tall LeVar, rest in peace to Tall LeVar. He's like, yo, Mike, why you always be out here with us, man? We out here playing around, goofing around, playing the game, but you play a real game that could get you places we can't go. So he was just like, and he was younger than me, but the game had taught him. He's like, yo, this block is going to be here forever. You can go to college, travel the world, meet all kind of famous people. And if you F up, guess what you can come back to, and we'll take care of you. But if you go and be something great, you might be able to take care of us. And I said,
Now,
yo,
today is Father's Day, so I want to first say Happy Father's Day to you.
thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
want to talk about how you were raised. Were you raised with your dad as well in your household?
Yo, like I said, shout out to Sean Brown. Shout out to this platform, because I was able to watch your interview with Sean Brown. Who's one of my good friends, and we are connected by the spirit in the hood and everything. We do the same type of work. We want to look out for young men. I heard his story, and his story connected with me because so many of my friends and peers came from single parent families. I mean, crack hit us hard, like 86, 87. A lot of families got decimated. I remember knocking on friends' doors right on this block, and the whole family just gone because the head of the household was cut off because they started smoking that glass pipe. Or both the mom and dad, you know? So it was a wild dynamic. So a lot of families have just became literally single parent families. But a good dynamic of them was single parents with mom. I was single parent with dad.
Oh, okay.
So every sound, every movement resonated with me different than most of my friends. Like yelling and screaming was something different to me as opposed to a friend who came from a household with a soft-spoken mom. My dad was military. I always think about that scene in Menace to Society, the movie, right? Y'all young people go check that out. Y'all never seen it. But when the boy was little and Samuel Jackson, his dad had shot the guy over a game of cards. And the boy was traumatized. But he kept hearing his dad talking, Kurt. He was projecting a deep, like underwater vibrating voice. My father talks to me like that since I was a little kid because he came from combat. Like me and my brothers and sisters were babies of warfare. Like my father went to war and fought my mother in the Philippines. So if there was no war, my father didn't have the spirit to go fight. He would have never found love to create us. But from that fight and the love, there was a lot of turmoil. He came back with a lot of issues. But the structure of the military lifestyle kept him whole enough that he could raise us and raise the damn near whole hood. Like if you pull up on any brother in their 30s and 40s, like, what you know about the Massey house? They'd be like, you could get free food there. You could play video games. You could sleep there 4 or 5 nights if you needed to get right. If you was coming off the block in the middle of the night and just needed somewhere to crash or getting chased by the police, you knew the secret knock. You knew, like, this was a place, it was a community center without the label, because even back in the 90s and 80s, my father knew I needed to create a space for my sons and their friends. And this is a direct quote from my father when I was a kid in the 90s. I let y'all get away with drinking and smoking in this house. I know y'all are doing it because I can cover for that if I have to. But you can't be hurting women or raping nobody or doing no sexual acts because I can't cover for that while I'm at work. He said, but the thing I need y'all to understand is I'm doing this because I fear the cops killing you on these streets more than I fear you guys getting drunk and passing out or fighting in the house. And this was in the 90s. So the dynamic has not changed. It's gotten worse. And imagine if we didn't have this space. So to have my father to have that foresight and that to see and make that tough decision as a man and know he was raising men and take that risk. It reminds me of a documentary I seen about Nas when his dad, the musician Olu, was telling him and his brother, y'all got to get out of the New York public schools because they're not looking out for your best interest. His father on that documentary said that was the craziest thing I ever to tell my sons because morally it wasn't sound and people looked at me like I was nuts. And I got to imagine my father probably felt that way, opening his house us to a bunch of gangsters and criminals. And we all ended up being pretty decent dudes. Most of us, some of us just stayed that path. But it was a wild growing up here. It was a wild energy, a lot of male energy. And it wasn't until I got married and stuck it out with my wife, and I wasn't the greatest husband or dad early in it, but she stuck it and showed me what female energy is and that you have to have it. And that's another thing yoga taught me too. Like both energies have to move together.
I was going to ask that, like with your parenting or even being a husband, how has yoga influenced those relationships for you, having that understanding?
Man.
Tell it to the men, man. Tell it to them, because I speak to a lot of people that feel like they don't need therapy or the mindfulness is not something that is, and I try to tell a lot of people, like, if you don't understand why you move the way that you move, then you're going to keep doing things that you don't understand. Like you're going to keep moving in a way that you are regrettable about because you don't understand it. So you tell us, Yoga Mike, let us know like how it's been able to help you be a better father, be a better husband. What types of things have you learned in your studies of yoga or in your practice of yoga that have helped you in your relationships at home, if any?
I take a deep breath for this one because I dabble in ancestral medicines. So yesterday I did a ceremony with the great Dr. A and some other people that deal with the Kemetic energies and different
Dr. A, that's my girl, man. Hey,
yeah,
Dr.
so
A.
We dove in. We dove in on this medicine, this ancient medicine called bufo. It's a poison from a toad. So I went to a special place yesterday, and I still feel the remnants of it. So you asking me that question brought me somewhere back to that same place where I just felt like I got it. And what I get is I have to start from the beginning. Like the reason why I'm good at what I do, and I never really toot my horn, but I'll just kind of say it because it's I don't know, people tell me it. Like I never massaged myself, so I don't know. I've taught yoga classes. I've never been on the receiving end of my own teaching. Like I've been to other people's classes. But the feedback I get is it's like, dude, like you do something different. And I just feel like I don't know what I do different. So this morning, as I was kind of still feeling the remnants of that medicine, I watched a video of my grandfather and my father, and it took me to an emotional place. And I realized I needed to cry. So I cried this morning for like 20 minutes. Not the ugly cry with the boogers coming out. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I just felt pressure and I needed to release it. So I just let it all go out. And I realized the reason why I am good at what I do is I'm always in pain. Like I was a little kid that like when my mother would go to the bathroom when I was like 5 or 6, I would race behind her and literally bang on the door, like get objects and bang. Like it would traumatize her to go to the bathroom around me. And she used to ask me, Mike, why do you do it? And I said, Ma, you're going to leave. You're going to leave. She's like, oh, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to leave now. Fast forward to I'm like 13, 14, she left. Situation here was just so crazy with my pops holding on to a lot of energy that he had left from the war and just crazy with drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. Just not suitable for her to be here at that time. And she left. And I knew that. So my mother always told me, you
Before she even said it.
indigenous, so you know, my mother's from the Philippines. Yeah, my mother's from the Philippines. So she always used to tell me they have witchcraft and stuff. So she understood that from a long time ago, I had a different insight. I see things different. And she was scared that the world would hurt me for it. So it wasn't my father that brought me to football.
Okay.
My mother and my Aunt Kathy drove me to the Mattapan Patriots because in the 80s, that was the only Pop Warner football team. There was no youth programs for kids back then.
Right.
I think a brother from Grove Hall had to drive to Mattapan just to maybe get a shot to play football because all the other kids were trying to make it to that one spot at Almont Park. And we had to pass through the Jamaican posse to get to practice every day. So this was the influence of the life I was living. I had to come from my hood, which is wild. You got H Block, you got academies, you got Castlegate down there, you got Intervale. So it was crazy already. Then I had to drive up Blue Hill to Mattapan to go walk through the Jamaican posse and all that to play football. So we finally got to it. My mother showed me that I needed that shield of protection because I was a special kid. And I realized that pain and that shield of protection was something that I had to always carry for the rest of my life. Now I focus more on the pain because it's easy to be a victim in this world. It's easy to be like, oh, something's wrong and it's not my fault. And I would have did better if it wasn't for this. Exactly. And most of us, that path is put on us from the moment we're born because of our situation. It wasn't until I got broken, right? I broke my arm. See these ugly scars? Playing football. Got metal in here, all kind of screws. When it rains, it feels funny. You know, when it gets cold, it gets real cold. So I'm jacked up. When it happened, all of that came together. The football led me to a space where I had to be vulnerable and I couldn't be a victim no more. I was laying in the bed, and my wife was just like, all right, dude, it's been like 4 days now. I see you under the covers. Your kids are little. Your sons, you have 2 sons running around asking, what's up with daddy? What's up with daddy? Like you have a daughter that sees you as the strongest person in the world. And you're just hiding in the dark under the covers. Like, she's like, I get it. I've never been a football player. I know how much it means to you. I'm not you, but I'm not discounting how much it means to you and how hurt you are. But if you're not careful, all of us are going to be hurt. I need you to get up. I need you to do something. You know what I did? You don't know what you're talking about. And I rolled to the side. Next morning, she gets up. I keep pointing over there because she's sitting there. The next morning, she gets up and she turns the TV up super loud. And there's this voice coming out the speaker box of the TV. And it's this white dude with a real deep voice. It's like, good morning. You are now about to go into yoga with Steve Ross. And I'm like, who is this white boy? And then I listen to the music he's playing. He's playing like Earth, Wind, and Fire. He's playing like Al Green. I'm like, holy smoke. He's making yoga cool.
Yeah.
Like how he's talking about it, how he's moving. Then I get up and I look and I see nothing but brown brothers and sisters with dreadlocks and natural hair. And this is on the Oprah Winfrey Network. I'm like, see, my wife is doing it, but she's looking over her shoulder. He'll say, put your left hand down, and she'll put her right hand down. And I'm in the bed because she knows the football player in me always watches the technical savvy of everything.
Right.
And they say, lift your left leg, and she'll lift her right leg. And I'm like, babe, you're doing it wrong. She's like, shut up. I'm doing my own thing. You don't know what you're doing over there. Like, but you're doing it wrong. Well, if I'm doing it so wrong, get up and show me. Rest is history. Like, she knew she could argue with me, or she could use that male and female energy tandem to play her part and not be afraid. Get up out the bed before I hit you with this frying pan.
Well, you know, I always say, people say manipulation is negative. I always say that a loving manipulator is the best person to have in your corner, man. For real.
Yo,
someone that knows how to manipulate for love's sake, that is, you know, that's always a good thing to me.
Because manipulation and motivation are just like hot and cold. They're on the same thermometer. It's just the difference of degree. That's all. So that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, man, like that was the moment where Yoga Mike was birthed, because I listened to her and I got into this job working at this. And again, racism showed its face. I got into this job working for the state at a control center. And in that control center, it was 3 different shifts. Each shift, it was just a bunch of old white men. They had one woman that was on the first shift. They had an Asian guy that was on first shift. And then they had me, again, who covers Nicaraguan, that's Hispanic, Latinx. I had Asian, Filipino, Pacific Island, and I also had African American. So I covered 3 different quotas. Right. And you could see how they was playing the game. And I said, I could sit here for the rest of my life and listen to their dogmas and their mantras, because I started studying yoga, and I understand if you hear the same thing every day, it becomes a mantra, something that beats just like your heart. I could listen to all of them talk bad about Obama and all. It was during that time where everybody was just, it was weird, but not as weird as now. And I just started seeing the truth for what it was. We were creeping up on the 2012 and the Mayan calendar, and what those indigenous folks were talking about, the shift and the end of the world as we know it. And most people played on the cinema of that and the drama. What's going to be volcanoes and earthquakes? I'm like, nah, the shift is going to be in how people see themselves, and not necessarily physically, but how you see yourself energetically fitting in your square first, and then how your square fits into the bigger game. That's what the whole Mayan calendar showed me as I looked at it. And I started studying sacred geometry, started finding out about plants and crystals, and the yoga kept bringing me to different places and meeting different people. And the next thing you know, I'm sitting at my job, and I told my wife, I don't think I like the energy here. I've been here a couple of years now, about 7 years now, 8 years now. I got to get out of here. Maybe I should just go into IT, because I think IT people are making a lot of money, and the people that come here to fix the computers. She said, no. She was going to fight me on it. I was like, but my boy's doing it. She's like, no, that's your boy. Shout out to my man, Charlie Fish, may rest in peace. He was taking classes at UMass Boston for that. And I was like, I could just go to school with him. She was like, you cannot get stuck behind the desk ever again. I'm your wife. I know you. I see the kids we've created, their energy, your energy, it all is introspective now. If you get stuck behind the desk again, we're all doomed. Go become a yoga teacher. It was my wife that said, I said, well, if you're so smart, where should I go? And just like a good mom and wife, she was like, oh, I already checked that out.
She already had all the information ready for you.
My friend just graduated. So she already ready. She had the alley ready for me to dunk it. So
listen, the day that she was doing the yoga video wrong, she had all that information ready for you.
Yeah, of course. I've been with her so long now. I already know.
She was ready for you to ask the questions right then.
She already knows. She's the mastermind of this, man. I try to make it look good because she's the mastermind of it all.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's amazing. So talk to me a little bit about your upbringing. Now, I heard you say that you were mixed with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Was military. Where did you live growing up? Were you always in Boston?
I still live in the same block. My grandfather bought this very same house right here on Holland Street. It's tucked in between Elm Hill and H Block, Humboldt. Like, it's right on that block. Like, this is where, historically, this is where Malcolm X called Sugar Hill. Like, Malcolm his aunt and him lived down on Dale Street, down by the Lewis School. So everybody come up the hill back in if you read the autobiography of Malcolm X, coming up the hill was coming up Sugar Hill towards Franklin Park. So all these big houses that have like secret compartments where the servants used to have to come, and you got little buttons on the floor to step on so the owners of the house could get the servants to come up in the servant. It's magical in these houses because this used to be a Jewish neighborhood. Yeah. Their big synagogue used to be up here on top of Elm Hill, across from the zoo. I'm giving y'all a little logistics of history as well. But I've been here my whole life, and I watched this place change. I remember when I was a kid, there was still some Jewish folks living here. Mr. Baker lived down the street and would give us bagels because he had a bagel shop. My grandmother could order her stuff from the drugstore right up by Homestead Street, and somebody would deliver this stuff. Right, it's coming back to that now. But everybody kind of knew each other. Like you knew the people that owned the stores. They lived in the neighborhood. It was a different. But then again, like we talked about before we started recording, it became redlining. It became property tax games. It became licensing games. You've seen a lot of businesses come into the neighborhood that didn't necessarily have roots in the neighborhood. And I saw that too. And then we saw how crack hit the neighborhood, and the neighborhood got shredded. So now I'm seeing it come back.
Another good point too, when you said that it's coming back to like people getting delivery. It's different though because I tell all the time, and I know you are already aware of this. That, the point of this show is really to rebuild the community. So I remember times back then because my grandmother did the same thing. She would order her prescriptions or medicine or whatever she needed, like even castor oil, like and it'll come to our house. And this is when I was little. This is the type of thing that would happen. But back then, it wasn't because we have all these advanced apps and technology and one-click
It was just
things.
relationships.
It was more community, right? It was the idea of community. Someone had a small shop. They were a pharmacist. They worked hard to put their kids through school, and they were delivering stuff to their neighbors, and it was all part of community. Do you think that now the way that the world is going, I mean, we have all this rioting and protests going on, all of these inequities that we see within the communities, within our communities anyway, the things that we're not given or disparities that we experience. Do you feel like we are, because of these things, on our way back to a stronger, more solid community, or do you feel like it's doing something more disruptive?
This is par for the course. This always has been, always will be, is always ever going to be. There's always going to be unrest and rest, unrest and rest, unrest and rest. It's the ones that have the insight to learn. Like again, before I took the medicine yesterday, the shaman told me it's going to be a wild ride. So let's practice the breath first. Let's breathe in through the mouth, close it off with your tongue, then out your nose. So we went through the motion first. When we talk about this when we're developing relationships, developing kids, or developing anything, like you can talk about it, but then what do we say in the street? You have to be about it afterwards. There's one thing to talk about it, but then you got to show me you have the aptitude to apply it in the situation. So what you saw yesterday with these young kids who bought up all these tickets for the Trump rally and they didn't show up, it shook his whole plan. At first they was like, oh yeah, we got 1 million people, seats reserved, blah, 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 blah. And one of them people never planned on going in the first place. And they kind of just sent a voltage through the whole system to show we're aware. You're never going to keep this energy quiet. That's why I say it's par for the course. The chaos has its purpose, but so too does the light. Like if you become an initiate to any schools, like again, sacred geometry, if you start studying, that's what brought me where I'm at. I can't say I'm at a higher level or low level. I'm aware of things at a rate that's unimaginable. I just feel stuff about to happen even before it happens because of the practice. Because I block out intellect all the time. I say I'm a fool. People say you're really smart. I'm like, no, I'm a fool. I just ask a lot of questions. I don't want to be smart. Or people say you're the king. I don't want to be the king either. Kings get their heads cut off. Teachers live forever, right? And the teacher's just a fool that keeps asking questions. I'll be that. But it's par for the course, man. Like we have to see things get shooken up so we can see where the people that hold the superpowers are. Like I always say, what's the sense of having superpowers if you don't have an instance to show it? Like this has been happening since the beginning of time. Stupid people get together and try to bash their way through society and life, and then the intellects all come in, the healers all come in, and they reshape it. Yeah, we're gonna find something dope now because these kids get it. That's why I brought up the kids playing that snafu on the president. These kids understand it. Like I'm looking at a lot of social media posts of younger white communities now. Their kids are just appalled at what their parents are doing. Like there was one where I think the parents went and started tearing down Black Lives Matter signs that some little kids, their same kids' age, had up, and their kids were looking at their parents like, they're starting to see the veil is lifted. You can't fool me with that BS that this is how it is. These kids got extra chromosomes. They're going to ask the extra questions. It's time. So it's par for the course. And I'm ready for all of it. I'm just going to enjoy the ride.
Okay. Now, what do you tell your kids, or how old are your kids? Are they old enough to kind of understand what's happening, or are they still babies?
Man, my kids are bigger than me. I got 3 that live here with me and 2 that don't. I got 20-year-old who's halfway through her for undergrad at Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire. She's an Ivy Leaguer, so I'm very proud of that. I got one who just turned 17. I got a 13-year-old who literally just spent his last couple of weeks in quarantine so he wouldn't go crazy building his own computer from scratch, which was dope. I got a 16-year-old that lives in New York, and I have a 11-year-old that just graduated yesterday. So I have all over the spectrum, father that's in home, out of home. So I have a lot of different dynamics of it. But I tell the three that lived here, the day we saw the George Floyd, it was my 17-year-old that brought the Ahmaud and the George video to me, because I'm at the point now where that stuff, if I'm not careful, it will numb me again like the 90s numb me. And I don't ever want to get numb like I was in the 90s, because I lost a good decade of just not feeling nothing. I think a lot of us did. And a lot of us had to seek help or self-help because we had to shut off the pain of the 90s, of coming of age at a time where we would just call Generation X. They didn't have no solutions for us. It was like, we have nothing for y'all because we didn't expect your parents and uncles and aunties to be on crack and get wiped out. So now y'all just got to be lambs for the slaughter, and we'll worry about the generations later, right? Yeah. So that was us. So we come from that. So when I talk to my kids, I just tell them what's up, what's good, what's really happening. So he brought that to me very delicately because he knows how I feel about all this crazy stuff. And we just kind of had a moment where I talked to each person individually, started with my wife, then my kids each, and we kind of just had to make this pact that, yo, if the mother, excuse my language, if somebody puts their knee on my neck like that, we're all dying that day. We're not going out peacefully. We fight, we fight, we fight. There's no second thought. There's no second guess. There's no please officer, get off of him. F that. The lines have been drawn in the sand. And the systems that have been put in place that give these officers this free range to do this are so deeply rooted that this is the game now. And it's the talk I had to have with them. And I had to think, because my son, they all went to the Marblehead community schools for Metco, because I'm a product of Boston Public School. And I never seen a white person really until I got to college. So I was very awkward and didn't even like looking them in their faces when I talked to them. I felt like I couldn't trust them. I didn't know nothing about them. But I needed them not to have that same handicap. So I sent them out there, and what I told them when they went to Metco was like, this is not a showcase of you guys going out there to be a dog and pony show for them. Show them how awesome you are. Show them that we also have culture and we have intelligence here in the hood too. And when they take pictures in our house and they see a backdrop with stained glass windows and woodwork and crown molding, and they ask y'all, is that your house? You tell them, yeah, because most of those kids out there think we all live in the projects anyway. So I need y'all for them to see that it's different here too, and y'all to see that it's different out there as well. So they understand the dynamics of racism. They see it, right? But I just had to let them know that at the end of the day, we have power, we have a structure, we have a belief in each other, we have a belief in the fact that if you can be the smartest person, you can always be chosen to go to the next level. Like if this world would have shut down now and they're like, everybody get in a bunker, my daughter's getting in a bunker. Because she's a kid that came from Grove Hall and she's on her way to Fortune 500 off her own hustle, not because her dad was rich and famous or bribed some coach to say she played volleyball or something like that, like how they do.
Yeah.
I just told her, get down and hustle. I told him everything's a game. Everything's a video game. Just like video games, you fight and it might be a tough boss or a tough obstacle to fight to get to the next level. You treat your education, you treat your street life like that, you treat your social, your dating life like that, and you'll be okay.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I think that, I have a son, he'll be 13 this year. I think that they are the generation under us that are going to actually make the change. I think that our parents were given such a bad hand that we saw so much that we wanted to shift. So a lot of people in our generation, I think that we're kind of breaking down the negative connotation around getting therapy or mental health. And I think that's us kind of breaking that down, because a lot of people in our age range, I think, and even some of my older cousins, like, 5 to 6 years older than me, a couple of younger ones, have been going to therapy for different things. So I think that now we're finally starting to understand, okay, listen, we've been traumatized throughout our whole existence. A lot of it comes from even inside of our own households, because if our parents were children of slaves or grandchildren of slaves, then our parents are still thinking a certain way too. And so in each generation, hopefully our kids are getting better than us. Hopefully generationally they're growing and they're becoming better and they're becoming stronger. So I commend and this younger generation, because I feel like they are the action takers. They are the ones organizing.
We was the space holders. We held space.
We were kind of, I think our generation was tired of hearing it, right? Tired of the talking about it. It's like, it's time for action. It's time for someone to do something. It's time to stop talking about it, because we grew up in the 80s and 90s, so we were hearing about the 70s, hearing about all the activism that went on then.
Yep.
So now for it to be coming back, I'm super proud. I'm super proud of these young kids out here that are taking this initiative to really use this as an opportunity to have their voices heard and to talk about the different things that they're going through and the different pains that they're experiencing in their life. I think it's such a great time globally. I mean, and then I see all the different reports from different countries and stuff. And
veil is lifted. That's what the Mayans were talking about. The world as we know it. No more secrets and lies. It's going to be a moment of truth. And every great religion, every deep book. Like, I'm reading a book right now called The Language Crystal. It's the most I've ever spent on a book in my life, including college. Like, I needed that book.
What is it called?
And it got marked up. It's called The Language Crystal. I'm reading it now, and I keep putting it down because it seems like the book, it's like, remember that movie, The Never Ending Story, where the little boy went and hid in the attic and read the book, and the book started happening as he's reading it? Yeah. I'm reading this book on my porch every morning, just trying to have my moments to myself, my little smoothie. And it's like the dude is talking everything that's going on now, except he's speaking about Ronald Reagan's era in office. And instead of COVID, they got HIV. So it's the same playbook that this brother that's in the White House is using, the same playbook. Yeah. It's just different uniforms, different names on the back of the jersey, but the game is still the same. It's just different rules and regulations.
Do you have Netflix?
Mm-hmm.
That's almost a stupid question, right? Who doesn't have Netflix? But so there's a new movie on there. It's called, if I say it wrong, I'm gonna be so mad at myself. It's called The Five Bloods. It's the Spike.
Yeah. I watched that the other day.
You watched it?
So deep. I gotta watch it again because I got so wrapped up.
Man, listen to all the viewers out there. I have to say this to everyone that. To anyone that hasn't seen that show yet, this is to all the viewers out here, since Mike already seen it. I'm telling you, I mean, Spike Lee is just such a prolific person in general, right?
He has layers
so detailed, he's so smart, he's so layered, right? But then you watch this show and you see even something that I was helped to appreciate is the way that Vietnamese people were actually led to think about Black people, right, during that war. So that's something that I didn't understand, is the way that they were, the media kind of worked even against Black people. So you have these Europeans, once again, sending Black people someplace to go and fight and destroy something. So it gives us this reputation that we're over here, this fighting destructive thing, where we're being sent, we're being forced, we're being, like, this is the only option. And so, and that was one of the points. And then there was so many other great just monologuing in that movie. And I don't remember the guy's name, the guy's actual name that he played Paul. So he was kind of crazy. His son was there with him. So in Malcolm X, he was the crackhead. He was like the fiend dude. Yeah, so him, he needs, what's the kind of award that you get for movies? Is that an Oscar, a Grammy, an Emmy?
It's Oscars.
He's one of those for that. For that movie alone.
And they touched on a lot of things I saw my father go
Is that
through.
Delroy?
Delroy Lindo. The one whose son came. The one whose son came and took to. Yeah, his character had mad layers, man. A lot of those outbursts, awesome. I saw my own dad. Like, I would see my dad have dreams like this on the couch. Yeah. Like, our thing, we used to spend Sundays together and watch football. And we had a big living room where the two couches kind of sat facing each other. He would get the bigger couch, I'd get the smaller couch. While all my siblings would go to my mom's house down by the Cape to go hang out, and do fancy things out there. I just want to stay with my dad. And he used to be like, naps are the greatest thing, son. And we take naps together. And sometimes I'll get up before him to go use the bathroom, so I'm going to get ready to watch the next game. And he'll be fighting in his sleep. And he'll be bugging, having full conversations like he's face-to-face somebody, but he'll be out. And I remember those are the things my mother said used to scare her too, that made her leave. So when I saw that movie, it touched me a whole different way. So I'm pretty sure brothers like my father who were in their 70s who went through that. Like the story about the brother that had the little girl. And the mother just felt like she had no resentment towards the father. She just was like, your father's a Black man in America. Yeah. I can't raise you here under that fact. So I have to change the game because of how people look at Black GIs that came over and got women pregnant. And think about how they looked at the women that got pregnant and got left behind.
Yeah.
There's a lot of psychological layers, man. Spike's a freaking genius,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, Spike Lee did his thing in that. So if you haven't seen it already, definitely go see it. It's
Yeah, man.
actually a great movie to watch with your dad. You know, such a great thing that you said right now, Mike. That your dad, you know, because he was military, you experienced those like flashbacks, right? Those things that they've gone through, the different traumatic experiences, whether it's positive or negative for them, or the impact that they had on the family, whether that's positive or negative. The fact that that story is being told in such an honest, reflective way. That's what impressed me so much. It's like it's just such an honest reflection about, you know, because we see ourselves a certain way. We see ourselves, you know, we're being forced to go to war, right? Where they see us as we're just coming over here to kill them. You know, it's a very interesting dynamic that people that are in power, people that kind of feel that they have control over the strings.
Again, mantras, things people repeat in their ears. Yep.
Yeah, and they're putting people in a position to be dealt with and thought of a certain way. It's interesting. You know, it's a super interesting dynamic. It actually makes me curious for more information, for more knowledge, for more connection to the universe, because I know, just like you just said.
But that's what mindfulness is all about. We were talking about.
I just understand expansion, right? When you start, the universe will say, okay, I'm gonna open this up a little bit for you. You know,
but that's what that's how the universe started. Like it's all connected.
It just starts to expand.
As above, so below. As within, so without. Like we are the universe, and that when you allude to facts like that, it's proven that journey that you feel like you have to be on. Like that's the beauty of mindfulness. It reminds us that we're on a rock that is literally spinning. It's a rolling rock. It's spinning around, rotating. The ocean is moving. I can feel the air moving around me. Right. My heart's beating. My nerves are tingling. Everything is constantly vibrating and moving. The one who masters it all is the one who can learn to just be still in the moment and still stay aware, but not have to move a muscle unless they choose to. That's the beauty of what mindfulness is. And it's so simple that people think it's a hustle, or they think it's some sort of, that's some sort of con. It's like, nah, man. Like they say, yoga and mindfulness only needs experience and effort. Whereas, and this is not to pit one against the other, this is just fact. Whereas religions need faith. You have to show your faithful first for this religion to start working. Whereas in the science of yoga, that's why I call it science. They say, what kind of teacher are you? I say, I'm a science teacher. You say yoga, sometimes people suck their teeth and look you up and down like you're hurting the kids or something. But I've been through all that too. But no, when we look at the science of it, it's just proven.
What I appreciate about, and I'm not into yoga, but what I do appreciate about the idea of mindfulness, and then even the difference of, I say this a lot more often because I told you I was raised in a religion, a very strict one. And what I've recognized at this point in my life is that there is a very big difference between religion, which I believe is just an organized process of thought, versus spirituality, right? I believe spirituality is your connection. You know, spirituality is, I believe that is your faith. I believe that is your connection to the universe. I believe, you know, but it's very different than religion. It's not an organized thought. It's more feeling. It's more understanding. And like you just so beautifully illustrated, it is life itself. Anything that is moving, that is living, that is breathing, that is shifting on its own accord or through the efforts of creation, is life. You know, this is the thing that we all can connect to and all are a part of. And that's what I feel really good about, you know, but that kind of separates me from the whole idea of religion, you know.
Because it's something you can feel. Like we talked about this kind of before we started actually doing the cast. Like another great movie. I'm a movie buff most of the time. 5 Heartbeats. Remember they brought the white guys in like, yo, your song is dope, but we're going to let these guys sing. And the dude was like, got nothing but love for you, babe. And it was like, hold up. He got all the words down. He knows the song, but he ain't got it. Like I look at, like you said, when you're dealing with religions, like everybody shows up and dresses up because they want to show they have it. But then I always think, doing the ceremony yesterday with the ancestors and taking some sacred medicine that our ancestors took before there was even structured churches, before there was even buildings with crosses on top of them. Our people were worshiping harvest. Our people were worshiping nature. Our people were worshiping life, water, sex, each other, because those were the only things and ornaments and actual visualizations that we had that something was going on beyond us, right? And then, like you said, when the institutions of these religions became business, like, oh, you can get a tax break if you own a church. And I'm a church then. That means I don't got to pay taxes. Cool. Look how many churches, if you just go up Blue Hill Ave. Like, I remember watching The Wire one time, and one of the detectives was like, they asked the dope fiend, like, why those kids just be throwing those phones on the floor? And the dope fiend was like, oh, you don't know about the burners? So yeah, man, everybody got a phone. And then dude had invested his money in a cell phone company because he was trying to go from being a drug dealer into an investment guy. And he was like, yo, cancel all my stock in on AT&T and T-Mobile. And I said, why? He's like, that market is oversaturated. If these poor boys out here that got no jobs can get 2 or 3 phones, I don't want my money in that because it's oversaturated. I hate to sound mean and callous when I drive up Blue Hill Ave and see this church, that church, it's oversaturated. So if I'm a little kid looking for help and I see 100 different churches up my block and I'm out here and I'm asking for help, and if I don't belong to your church, I can't get the help in most cases because I'm a stranger. You don't trust me. This is all, like, we've learned from Dylan Roof. You can't just be letting anybody in your church now. So a lot of these churches are closed off. So the energy is closed off because, like you said, it became institution instead of free flowing.
Right.
This is why I choose to find the creator through my movements. And even if I'm just sitting still, through my breath, because I got to give thanks and gratitude that the creator built my muscle structure so my lungs can expand and collapse and my nerves can tell the muscles to move. Like, I didn't do that by myself.
Right.
When I'm sleeping at night, the creator keeps my heart beating. And I feel like I don't have to go put a donation into a silver cup or a gold plate to make sure that I'm reminded of that. Like, every moment when I'm afraid or I'm happy or I'm tickled or I'm concerned, the creator keeps me aware of something else going on. And I think that's the truest connection we can have to the creator. But
That's
again,
one
like
of
you
the
said, it got
biggest
institutionalized.
benefits, or if you had to, when you talk to your boys, for example, because I think that yoga is probably less men are probably aware of the benefits of yoga. So if you had to tell your friends or your boys, or if this was your elevator pitch right here, right? Can you talk to us about some of the benefits generally? Because I know you talked about some of your personal benefits, but some of the general benefits of taking yoga, being aware, having this mindfulness, doing that work.
The greatest thing that could have happened to me over the last 4 or 5 years is a lot of these professional athletes are taking it on as part of their regimen. Like when these NBA stars started signing contracts upwards of $100 million, but the stipulation was you have to last 7, 8 years. As soon as they sign these contracts, they're looking up and researching. They're on Google. They're talking to nutritionists. They're talking to the people that train the body to be stronger, but they're also realizing as much as I train the body to be strong, I have to know how to rest and shut it down immediately, to stop in a moment to preserve my energy. In yoga, we call it brahmacharya. You have to preserve your energy and use it wisely, right? So these young brothers getting these contracts knew I have to lengthen out my performance and my wear and tear. So the biggest thing was and Tom Brady helped out a lot with just being his age and being local around here. I could use him as somebody who's getting massage and doing yoga. So he's treating himself the way a lot of macho men wouldn't treat themselves. And it's starting to realize it's about longevity. So I use 2 people that most young brothers in the neighborhood, no matter what age you are, can relate to. I use Jay-Z and I use Michael Jordan. I say, when those 2 brothers are at the top of their performance, I always ask the kids, you wear the Jordans, you pay the money. Have you ever seen Michael Jordan play in real life? They go, no. I said, then you missed out. When his tongue used to hang out and he started like tongue just flapping like a dog, you knew you was not stopping Mike. He was scoring 50 or 60 on you no matter if you double team, because he was somewhere else. His body was here, but his spirit was connected to something else. Jay-Z, if you talk to Timberland or many producers in the business, they say, Jay-Z, don't waste your time. Most rappers come in and be like, hold up, let's do that over. Hold on. They say Jay-Z will listen to a few beats. When he hears the right beat and it touches him, he'll go into the corner. They call it his Rain Man act. He'll start whispering to himself a couple of minutes, then he'll go, let's go, turn it on. He'll make the song in one cut because his time is valuable and their time is valuable. But when you are on top of your game and you've synchronized with the thing that you're supposed to be connected to, because let's be honest, all of us are here for a reason. It's not by accident.
That's right.
We're here for a reason. Right? And we don't know why there's something greater than us pulling the strings. We don't know why. We're just moving, right? So if the strings are being pulled still, then you still have a purpose. The moment you find your purpose is what we call samadhi in yoga, is freedom. You now are plugged in directly to what you're supposed to do, and there's no doubt about it. That's when Mike's tongue comes out. That's when Jay-Z's goes into that corner. all of us have that in us. But the sad thing about the average person, you and I, we either see it when we're at our lowest of low, completely angry, desperate, hungry, or just can't have to survive. Like you ever hear about mothers that can pick up cars when their baby gets stuck because they find that energy, or we're just super elated. That's why people get drunk and high. Because we're trying to find it at either end of the spectrum. The true master learns how to pull that energy to the middle and turn it on whenever he or she needs it. And that's what the yoga does. It gives you a structure to practice every day. And like me and you talked about before the cat podcast started, there's 8 limbs to this tree. Most money makers out here that are using yoga as a money maker only focus on a quarter of it, 2 limbs. They focus on the movement and the breath and cool tights and yoga mats and socks with no toes and all that. They make you pay for the accessories. So just like we talked about religion being institutionalized, when people come to me to be yoga teachers, to train, I say we must be very careful how we treat this gift that we are given. We can monetize on it and make, you know how many contracts I've lost just because I refuse to change and be mainstream. I understand the power of what I'm teaching. Like a good preacher understands the power of the word, because they say in the beginning there was God and the word. Understand that the word is just important as God. So people take the word and they misconstrue the word and they use it to institutionalize religion. Now people are taking the yoga the yoga word or the yoga trainings and taking it to institutionalize yoga as well. And in the middle, you got this crazy dude just trying to keep it 100. And I think I'm the only one who can, because that's the only way you survive out here. Got to keep it 100.
What is the best way for people to contact you in Boston that are looking for yoga training? Any services?
I got a website. I use it sometimes. It's 33degreeyoga.com. The number 33 degree, like the temperature, and the word yoga all smashed together. You can reach me directly. It's a Wix page, so we got like this cool little chat thing. If you just click it, it goes right to my phone. So that's how people
we'll have that information posted at the end of the show as well. Mike, I want to thank you so much. Is there anything before I let you go that you still needed to say? I'm super grateful to talk to you.
I'm gonna bite it and paraphrase something that I heard in the It's a Beautiful Day movie of Mr. Rogers. Me and my wife watched that yesterday, and it touched us because we're both educators and we love little kids, man. And we both love Mr. Rogers as well. But he was talking to a guy who was doing a report on him from Esquire magazine. He was like, the dude was just hurt. Like he was hurt in his marriage. His body was physically hurt. And he told the guy to just be quiet for a moment and think of just a simple thing. He said, what? To think of all the people who loved so that you could exist today. And it brought me to my grandmother, who came from a rich family in Nicaragua but had to give it up because she married a black man. My mother, who left the Philippines at 17 to move to a country where she didn't know that she had a 3rd grade education, if that. Moved to a country where she knew nobody couldn't speak English, but she loved and trusted enough to make me and my brothers. So when you think of all the people that loved, and usually love comes with a sacrifice. Right. So I need everybody today on Father's Day, and every day if you can, to take a moment when you first wake up and just do that. Think of the people who actually engaged in love and loving acts and loving words amongst each other, so your ass could sit right here and be whatever you choose to be, whether it's a jerk, a nice person, a good person. You get to choose because other people loved and sacrificed for you to be here. And that's what makes me do what I do. And it's never about the money. It's never about selling out my hood. It's only about making sure that if you have a gift, you share it with people as best you can.
Yoga Mike, everybody. Thank you so much on Engage, Motivate, and Elevate. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining in. Make sure you stay tuned in for the next show.
It is now time to elevate.
Time to motivate them.
Let's engage. It is now time to elevate.